Hey guys, so I just wanted to remind you of a couple of things that are required for this project. The first one is that you need to add layers. So right over here on the right hand side of your iPad when you're in Autodesk is this panel. This is your layers panel and your color panel. It's your color panel. If you click on this rainbow circle down here, it allows you to select really basic colors. See how it looks like two little layers down here? When that's at the bottom, now you're looking at your layers. Basically, layers separate out each part of your drawing so that if you have a background and you draw a great tree on that background and then you go to draw a bird in the tree, the bird doesn't turn out so well. Using layers, you would be able to have a background layer, a tree layer, and a bird layer, and you would be able to erase that bird without erasing the tree or the background. So it's something that we can't really do very well in drawing. So let me go ahead and show you how this works. And the other thing that I need to show you is how to select your brushes, because you're also required to have multiple brushes. So we need multiple layers and we need multiple brushes. The brush toolbar is over here on the left-hand side, but we have a whole library of brushes that you can't see in this brush toolbar. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on the top brush. For you guys, it's probably a pencil. And once you have it highlighted with that blue line around it, you're just going to go ahead and you're going to click it again. This is going to pull up a settings box. That box allows you to adjust the size and how see-through. How see-through is what opacity is, how see-through that brush is. But if you look up here at the top, we have a grayed out word that says library. If we go ahead and click on that library, now you get to see all the different brushes that Autodesk offers, because there's a lot more than what you have over here on the left hand side. So if you scroll up and down, you get to see a ton of different brushes. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get started, and I'm going to use a brush called the Salty Watercolor Brush. So I'm going to find it. If you guys really like this brush, I can tell you that even though mine is rearranged, I got it from this artist collection down here. And you'll notice its handle matches the handles. So they kind of go by that. The handles all match each other. And once I have my Salty Watercolor brush, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a blue background. So to set a background that's going to stay the same for all of my layers, I'm going to look at this little half layer right down here on the right hand side. Remember, this is our layer panel. And that's a very light circle on it. I'm going to click on that circle and I'm going to choose a sky color. So it's a light blue. I'll make it a little bit darker. There you go. You guys can see it now. And then I'm going to click in the gray area. Now, using my Salty Watercolor brush, I'm going to pick the color white. So you can see I was using my color palette here. So here's that little rainbow circle. I can click on it. I have basic colors. And when I select the color, you'll see it in this dot at the top. So when I select white, it is white. Now, using my Salty Watercolor brush, let me go ahead and make it a little bigger. So I can also adjust the size, like going back to that settings one. I'm going to make this size bigger. Look at that. Isn't that cool? It already looks like a cloud. So now that I made the size a little bit bigger on my brush, I can go ahead and I can make some clouds. So one little hint with the Salty Watercolor brush is when you tap, you get more of an opaque or white cloud, and when you begin to blend it, you get more blend back there. And actually both are nice if you're going to make some clouds. So I'm just going to make some clouds here in the sky, a little mixture of blending, areas where I'm tapping. But we're going to add a bunch of clouds because they're pretty and I love this brush. Okay, so now I have a cloudy sky. The next thing that I need to do is I need to draw that tree that I was talking about so I can demonstrate the purpose of layers. So that means I'm going to need to use another brush. So I'll click on my brush. I'll go from the settings back into the library. And then I love to draw with my inking pen. So I'm going to pick that inking pen. I'm going to go to the settings, and I'm drawing a tree trunk here. So I'm going to make it really, really thick. And I don't want that tree trunk to be see-through, so the opacity is at 100. Remember, opacity means how see-through it is. The more opaque, the more opacity, less see-through, less opaque, more transparent, more see-through. Then I'm going to come over here to my colors, and I'm going to select a brown that I'd like to use for my tree. Then I'll go ahead, and I'll just make a little wiggly line. We're not getting super crazy with this tree, so I'm just going to pull it right to the side of the page. Remember, this is just a tree. It's going to have a bird in it, so I suppose that I'm going to need to give it a branch. I'm going to go ahead and click on my brush again, bring the size down so I can work on the end of that branch. Now, if I want to get some detail in there, notice I can put 2 fingers down on the screen and I can pinch in or out to zoom in or out. So this way I can end a Y in that branch, because one of the things we'll go over is that all branches end in Y's and all of those Y's reach up towards the sun. So a good way to make sure that you get a really realistic tree is to go ahead and just follow that one rule. So now I have a tree. I have a branch. I've used 2 brushes. I'm ready to go ahead and I'm ready to add a new layer. So I have my background, and that's safe. It's on its own background layer. I have my tree on its own layer. I'm going to add a new layer. So I did that by just clicking back to the layer side and clicking that plus at the top. So now I can see that my new layer is highlighted in blue. That means I'm now drawing on a new layer. So if I were to grab an eraser, so I have an eraser, you can see it here. It's a big, big eraser. So this should erase this whole screen really quickly. But if I go ahead, it doesn't do anything. That eraser is only engaged when I'm on the layer of the tree. So if I want to erase the tree, I would have to click on that layer. So now I can adjust the tree. Now that tree layer is highlighted. You can see if I run that eraser over it, now it's erasing that tree. It's not erasing the background though. The background's on its own layer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to undo those 2 things though, because I liked that. And the undo button is this little back arrow at the top. You can actually undo and redo. So you saw that next arrow lighten up, so that'll redo. And this will go way back and way forward as long as you don't leave this screen. Anyway, back to my new layer. So I was playing around with my layers here, and the tree layer is highlighted. I need to be sure if I want to work on a new layer that I highlight that new layer by clicking on it. So I'm going to go back to click on that new layer. Now that one's highlighted. Now my bird will be on its own layer. A couple other things before I move away from the layers is I want to show you each layer also has an eye and it has a lock on it. So if you ever don't see something that you thought you drew, if that eye is crossed off, it's like your eye is closed. So now you can't see the tree that was over here. If I open my eye, the tree goes back over there. Now, you also have a lock. If you ever go to draw on your screen and nothing happens, check your lock and what layer you're on. So you should always be on the top layer and your lock should be open. If your lock is closed, you can't draw on that layer. It's never going to make any marks. So if I were to pull out my inking pen, I could set my color to dark brown. You see, when I'm on that layer, when it's locked there, I can't draw again. So it's kind of like being on the wrong layer. If you check and you're on the right layer, it still doesn't work. Check that lock. When you unlock it, there, now you can go ahead and I can make my marks. So I'm going to go back 1. I'm going to zoom in. Remember, pinching in and out lets me zoom and rotate my canvas. And now I can go ahead and I can draw my bird. So I probably want to pick another tool. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one. This is my tattoo inker. It's a little bit looser. And I'll go ahead and I'll adjust my size. Flow is like opacity. So you can see it's kind of see-through, kind of not see-through. You can adjust how well it blends when you color over it, how bright it is, how diluted it is, whether there's like white mixed into it or not. So you can play around with this setting. Once you have it set, click in that gray area to make it disappear. And then I will pick by clicking the little rainbow dot down there. I know I'm clicking around fast. The color of my bird. So I'm going to look for red like a little cardinal. All right, I guess that's my red. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to look at my size. So this is also a quick size selector, this little tab, and it gives you a preview. So those are just a couple of cool little hints, and then I can go ahead and I can draw my bird. So here's my little birdie. He's got a little tail. And I'm going to go back to my inking pen now. I'm going to give him some legs. What color? I'm just going to, no, you know what? I'll give him some gray legs. I'm going to check that size. There we go. I can go ahead and give this birdie legs. But oh my goodness, what if my bird is just not up to par? So again, this is the point of layers and why I'm reminding you not only how to add layers, but really spending some time talking about why they're important is because we've all been in this situation. We do a great job. We add one more thing and it's over. And usually when we were younger, if we erased, we would have to redo these beautiful clouds, this beautiful limb. No longer. because of the layers. So if I put each part of my drawing on its own layer, I can easily get rid of one or two pieces without affecting the rest. So here's my bird layer. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Now when I click on it, if that lock is closed, you're going to see that some of these functions are not available. So I just wanted to point that out while we talk about the lock. But now it's unlocked, and in this second row of functions, you can see there's a trash can with delete. If I click that, it just gets rid of the whole layer. I didn't have to worry about messing up the clouds or messing up the tree branch. So today when you are playing around with Autodesk, make sure each part of your picture has its own layer. Remember, you're required to have at least 2 layers in your project. You add those layers by clicking the plus sign here. You always have to pay attention to what layer you're working on, and that tells you by this blue highlight and whether that layer is locked or unlocked. We also want to make sure that we're using multiple brushes. Remember, at least 2 brushes. So over here is our brush panel. When we click on that, it pulls up this settings box, which also hides our library of brushes. So when you highlight that gray area, now you have this giant library of brushes with some really cool stuff. I mean, we've got glow brushes in here. So maybe some of these clouds are glowing. I mean, just some really fun stuff. So play around, have fun, enjoy Autodesk. I can't wait to see what you come up with.